Mr. Kapos, greetings and thanks for coming here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we'll talk a little bit about journalism today, and my first question would be, Radio Liberty had an office in Kyiv for quite a long time, but a year ago you opened an office also in Lviv. Can we say that Ukrainian offices are becoming kind of a journalistic hub for Radio Liberty in post-Soviet countries?
I think that's an excellent description. Radio Svoboda has been in Ukraine for 70 years. This year marks our 70th anniversary. We're proud to have Ukraine as a home for our largest operation in the entire Radio Free Liberty, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty organization. Radio Svoboda is incredibly important right now, given everything that's going on here. We think it's important to have representation both in Kyiv and in Lviv. And we have correspondents who cover this entire country. They do frontline reporting, as you know. They tell the stories of Ukrainians. They tell the story of the resilient Ukrainian people. And they tell the story of what's really going on here. And we think they've forged a vital link, partnership with the audience that turns to them for factual information, timely information, and they've done so for 70 years.
And it's good. But still, the main office will remain in Prague.
That's correct. We are headquartered in Prague in the Czech Republic. We operate in 23 different countries all across Europe and Central Asia. We operate in 27 different languages, but this is the biggest operation that we have. And right now, given everything that's going on, it's of vital importance.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the freedom of speech, and namely in Ukraine. You've been here for
a week already,
and you know what is going on here. Can you say that we have a freedom of speech here in Ukraine? I ask this question because you know that a few Ukrainian channels are banned from the digital network here in Ukraine, including our channel Espreso. So, do you think we have this freedom of speech in this general meaning?
I think freedom of speech is a vital part of any country that clings to democratic principles, and certainly there's a lot of things going on here. We recognize that this is a time of war, but during my recent meeting with President Zelensky and also with the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, we spoke about the importance and the need for press freedom, and that we think it's of vital importance. Ukraine is going to be making a push for EU status, is continuing to grow as a democracy, and yet it is a time of war. Things are difficult during a time of war. I think all journalists are respectful of matters of national security and things like that. But at the end of the day, we have to speak up on behalf of press freedom and the responsibility to operate independently, without censorship, and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Speaking about the freedom of press, there is freedom of press in the Western countries, I know it, but what is the reaction to what is happening in Ukraine right now, to the Russian aggression, to the Russian war? Has the focus been reduced a little bit? Because as a global news journalist, I've noticed that for about a year, there is not a big focus on Ukraine in some media, Western media. What do you think?
I'm going to let other newsrooms decide how they want to cover the news. Yes, I've noticed that some news organizations have given less prominence to the Ukraine story. Frankly, that's something that we don't understand, and it's the total opposite of what our journalists have done. We have made Ukraine our biggest base of operations outside of the headquarters. It is of vital importance right now that we continue to do it. And so while the struggles, the efforts, there's so many different stories going on here, that total mix of the story of Ukraine is at the very core of what Radio Svoboda does every single day. And it's not just radio, it's on all platforms. We're not going anywhere. Others may lose interest, but we think that's a dangerous thing, quite frankly, because of the severity of the issues that are taking place here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now you already said that you had a meeting with President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, when you've been to Kyiv a few days ago, when you discussed with our president about Ukrainian journalist Yesepenko. Is there any news about this Ukrainian journalist Vladislav Yesepenko, who has been illegally detained in Russia for almost 3 years?
Yes, he's detained in Crimea. And Russia has occupied this now. None of this would have happened if Russia had stayed out of Crimea. It is a part of Ukraine. The world knows that. But because Russia has had other notions of what Crimea should be, illegal notions, they viewed a journalist who was telling the stories of Crimea as a threat. And he has paid a very steep price for this. It's been nearly 3 years that he's been imprisoned. We did discuss this with the president, and we were grateful to the president and to the office of the president for letting us know what is being done to release our colleague. And it's complicated by a number of factors. But everybody agrees that he should be freed. And the president did tell us that he intends to bring up the issue of our detained colleague this spring during the summit that is going to take place, we believe, in the springtime, and that matters of Crimea that include the detention of our dear colleague will be brought up at that time, and that's the direct words of the president. And we were grateful for his sharing that information.
Did you talk with the President Zelensky about the exchange of Ukrainian journalists for some Russian people, or just a release?
We did talk about this issue, but we had no specific information from the president about that, and frankly, we wouldn't expect that from him. That's something that he needs to sort out, and we respect the difficulty. However, the bottom line is, Vlad is a citizen. He's not a member of the military. His only crime is being a journalist and telling the stories of Crimea, and he needs to come home. I met this week not only with the president, but I was also honored to meet with Vlad's wife, Katerina. She's a very strong woman, as is Vlad. Vlad is an incredibly strong man. That family needs to be reunited, and we want it to happen now. The truth, what we're finding out, the truth is a threat to Russia. Otherwise, they would not be taking such drastic actions. Russia these days holds two of our colleagues, one in Crimea and one in Russia. And this tactic of arresting journalists simply for telling the truth must stop.
And you already talked about your journalist of Radio Svoboda, Alsu Kurmasheva in Russia. She was also detained a few months ago, and she was also convicted with such crimes that she did not commit. But still, do you have any information about her right now?
There's a number of things that are going on with her, and we are, just as with Vlad, we're exploring every option for securing her immediate release. Alsu is one of our colleagues. She's also a wife. She's the mother of two wonderful children. And she is also an American citizen. And so that has allowed us to explore other options, and like I said before, we will explore all options to bring home all of our colleagues who are detained unjustly, and also and Vlad and our colleagues who are being held in Belarus. We think about them every day.
Я хочу сказати нашим глядачам про те, що Алсу Курмашева перебуває в СІЗО з кінця жовтня минулого року. Її звинувачують у порушенні так званого закону про іноземних агентів, який діє в Росії вже протягом кількох років. І слідство вважає, що журналістка сама повинна була надати документи про те, що вона є іноземним агентом до реєстру агентів. Ну, але це Росія, їх не дуже інколи розумієш. Окей. Recently, the Russian Prosecutor General's office declared Radio Liberty, and I will quote, an undesirable organization in the country. Does this change anything for Radio Svoboda, since previously you were recognized as a foreign agent already?
It means that our journalists are very good at doing their jobs, because we clearly are irritating the Russian government. And look, a designation like this can have a chilling effect on journalists and journalism. They're trying to make the profession, the craft of journalism, an illegal activity, which is a preposterous, dangerous notion. And they can make these designations, but we can say emphatically the work is going to continue. We can't have offices, we no longer have offices inside Russia, but we still continue to cover Russia. Our reporting reaches deep inside Russia every day, and we're going to continue those efforts. It really does strike me that as they take these acts, as Navalny is silenced forever, as we receive a designation like this, as bombs fall on Ukrainian civilians every day, as these types of acts take place, there seems to be a growing level of desperation. And it's against...
Inside Russia.
Inside Russia, absolutely. And it is against... Who are the targets? The targets are free people, the people who long for freedom, the people who want to live in a sovereign country, the people who want to express themselves as journalists, the people who simply want to be able to travel back to Russia to visit their ailing mother, which was Alsu's situation. So, simply put, we will not be deterred, and we will continue to do what we do.
Oh, yeah. Speaking about the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, how can his death affect global journalism in general, and maybe even Russian journalists in particular, if it can?
It underscores, as I said before, that the truth is a very powerful tool. I don't call it a weapon, because this is not, we're not acting in war. We're not trying to exercise power. We're just simply trying to tell the truth. Of course, what they want is to have a complete chilling effect. They want to silence journalists. Journalists are murdered inside Russia. Journalists are imprisoned. There's a Wall Street Journal correspondent, Evan, and he remains, it's been almost a year now that he's been in unlawfully detained, wrongfully detained. But there's still a great deal of journalism being done, focusing on what's going on inside there.
You mean Russian journalism?
There's journalism taking place that covers what's taking place inside Russia. I think it's a fallacy to think that they can just kind of seal off Russia from the prying eyes of a journalist. It's not going to happen.
So it's not just propaganda in Russia. There are some pieces of journalism also?
Well, I'm saying that the outside world continues to keep
outside,
a focus.
But not inside.
I think that there are still some brave people who do their best to get the word out. And I think that they will continue to do that work. But yes, we're up against, on the other side, is a well-funded state media that often clings to propaganda, that completely ignores basic facts. For instance, Russia has made it illegal to use the word war to describe what is happening against the Ukrainian civilians. That's, again, absurd and dangerous. And the people who are open-minded know the truth.
Mr. Sapus, you already told that journalists of Radio Svoboda are working from the front lines. They are trying to show the real picture of what is happening on the front lines. But my question would be a little bit about different. Should Western journalists report from the front lines on the side of the Russians? Because there are quite a few instances.
That's a very interesting question. I think that I'm not sure that it's safe to do that these days. I think that Russian officials, Russian military view Western journalists as the enemy. I think they view them as a target. I think we see what the Russian military is doing when we see, yesterday I was in Bucha and in Irpin, and I can see what the Russian military is doing. We don't need to be reporting next to the Russian military.
Okay, thank you. And my last question to you for today would be about the post-truth era. How can journalism survive in the post-truth era?
I perhaps have an old-fashioned notion that the truth will prevail. There's so much being done right now to pollute the information environment, much of it disinformation. It is one of our missions at Radio Svoboda to battle disinformation, to do our best to illuminate bad information, to separate fact from fiction. I would just say that journalism is a noble calling. And right now, we need people who are committed to telling the truth. We should not surrender simply because there are forces who do not want the truth to be expressed or shared or viewed. But with our own eyes, we can see what's happening. We know what the truth is. And I believe, as I said, that journalists are in a incredibly important position right now to tell the world what's happening, and especially what's happening right here in Ukraine. It's of vital importance.
We should not surrender, and we will not surrender. Mr. Sapus,
surrender.
Thank you very much for coming today and answering my question. Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.